The links to join channel, become a valued member. Check out the subscribe star, support me over there. Obviously, Bit Chute, Gap TV, all the rest. So, a quick little follow-up video on the Sesame Street, the horrible act of atrocity that didn't happen at Sesame Street. There's a couple things. One, it shows you how unstable a society is that this would be taken seriously. And two, it shows you that we're not a nation. We're a commercial zone, essentially run by the media, bankers, and big tech. And a nation would just say oh yeah, we just don't kind of do this kind of thing over here. And you don't have that when what you have now. It's just an economic zone run by these very bad people who are constantly trying to manipulate different groups against each other to cause as much chaos as possible. So this happens. What happened was the characters, they have floats, so they ride along, and then they drive slow. It's like a parade, and then the characters walk along and give some of the kids high fives, and maybe they pose with photos or something. And so the character is in a costume, and they're looking out through the costume's eyes, and they're not able to see that great. And did this character purposely overlook this girl? Hey, maybe it's possible. The kid might have been really annoying, or more likely the character didn't see the girl, or the girl, someone said the girl was over the yellow line, and the characters don't touch people who are over the yellow line because they're not supposed to be. So the girl and her mom wasn't following the rules. It was like a 10-second video. It didn't show whatever the outraged Twitter mob says it shows, but it shows you how unstable the society is now. And what happens when you have a low trust society is you're always able to do stuff like this, manipulate one group against another to try to cash in on something like this. They're suing for $25 million. Will that survive summary judgment? Probably not. But will the company already issued a couple of soft apologies saying we're going to try to do better. But the thing is, one, you never apologize to SJWs. And two, you never apologize. You don't apologize for something like this because logically you didn't do anything wrong. If your narrative is the character didn't see the girl, then what are you apologizing for? You can't do anything to improve that. You want her to stop for every kid. And they showed a couple other examples, and it's they weren't showing anything. If you wanted to see something, you could see something in your mind, but it's it wasn't showing what they were trying to show. So the only way you get this way, where these are just grifters, but the media has slowly boiled this. They've slowly set conditions for 50 years of this isn't just post George Floyd. The media has been setting growing this fruit of this poison tree by just poisoning the soil for 50 years. This isn't on these two grifters, this mom and the attorney. They're just parasites. They're grifters. It's on the media that has been doing this, making this a valid option for somebody for the past 50 years. So it's they're the low trust people in the society, and who's going to call out the media when the media is all these low trust people? Anyway, so did the character see her or not? It's you can go watch the video for yourselves on social media, and then you go take a closer look at those costumes and see if you're able to see out of that. Anyway, so these are just grifting parasites trying to sue for that $25 million. And I'm sure the company will probably settle for much less than $1 million just to make this go away, which the attorney will take half. But the issue would be that the result would be that these parasites ruin it for everyone, which has already happened. The characters won't give high fives or pose for pictures for anyone, all because of one family of grifting parasites. That's what happens in a low trust society, and that ship has sailed. And there's obviously a lot more you could say on that, but it's a shame that it had to go down this path. And it looks like yes, you could turn this around, but it's not going to happen. There's nobody in America who's going to turn this around at the executive level, or anyone in politics. There's nobody. No, I mean, there's the president's executive branch, right? And then there's 535 legislators. And you look at those people and realize, oh, this ship has sailed. This is the path we're going to go down to its logical conclusion, because there's nobody who's going to step up and start speaking, because it's kind of the game theory thing where they're all hoping someone else will speak. Or at this stage in late stage Weimar, they're trying to grift as much money as possible. That's why they're sending money to different countries, because No, your politicians aren't worth hundreds of millions of dollars through their salaries. It's like they're sending this money overseas, and it's like, where do you think that money ends up? Oh, back in their pockets. Yeah, obviously. Or, Nancy Pelosi and her kid go overseas to over somewhere overseas, and the kids, like, they have tech deals, and the legislators deciding on chip deals, right? So her husband makes insider trades and makes, millions of dollars, and her kid goes overseas with her and, goes to work on the board of some chip deal, and you think, like, oh, well, she's not advocating for the best interests of the country. She's advocating for the best interests of her and her family. So that's what I mean. Is like, there's nobody who's going to try to save the country, because even the people in office realize it's too late. They're just trying to get as much money out of the treasury as possible, while the U.S. dollar still has some value, and the rest of the country, like, they literally don't care about it. So it's like something like this is deeper than just this surface level approach of, oh yeah, this grifter attorney and this grifting mom is trying to grift for $25 million. It's like, the conditions that made this possible tell you about the health of the nation. It's like, oh, it's sick beyond saving. So they remove the characters, that specific character from the park, and the characters ride on the floats now instead of touching the kids, and I'm sure every park's going to follow suit. And they're going to just do all this kind of stuff because they realize suddenly, like, people realize, oh, there's nothing to prevent this kind of stuff. There's no social pressure we can exert because you don't live in a nation, you live in a commercial zone. So the economic liability of having a grifter come along and say, oh, my kid got overlooked, and then blow it up on social media. So that means it just ruins it for everybody, like, almost overnight. And the society readjusts to this, and like, nobody speaks up against it. Like, there's nobody, in the sense that nobody's coming to save us that has many meanings. I mean, I say that, it's like, well, look around at your leaders now. You've got an 80-year-old dementia patient with an executive cabinet of a bunch of crooks, and then you look at the people in, our representatives, and you realize, oh, they're not doing anything at all except looting the treasury. So that's what I mean when I say no one's coming to save us. Like, if you want to turn this around, it has to come from a legitimate grassroots movement, from people like us. Anyway, so all the kids have to miss out because of one family of grifters. People look at at these other countries doing cool stuff. Like, there's a meme that went around. They saw some train in Japan or something on Twitter, and they go like these idiots get on Twitter and they go like, well, why can't we have cool stuff like that? Why doesn't America have all this? They're showing some cities in Japan or South Korea, and you're like, why do you think we can't have cool stuff like that? Why do you think we can't have cool things? This is why we can't have cool things. You can't have a high trust society where you get people who are allowed to do this, because it devolves to the level of the lowest common denominator, which is these grifters. And it's like, you can blame the grifters, the mom and the lawyer, but they were only made possible because of the media. The media's like, the mom and the lawyer, they're not looking into the future, and honestly, they don't care. They're not future seers, and there's also going to be grifters in any group of people. It's that the society shouldn't have got to the point where it's taken seriously. And we didn't put the society there. The media has done that. And there's nothing to defend against the media, and no one's even trying. That's what I mean when there's no one coming to save us. It's like, this is headed for an inevitable dissolution one way or the other, because there's nothing that anyone can do to stop it. No one will speak up against it. And I only say that because nobody has. There's hundreds of people at the federal level who have some political leadership, gravitas, who could start, and there's various other public figures in the media who could, and there's various other celebrities who could, and zero people have. So, I mean, this is going in one direction. There's nothing that will stop this, except for us. And, it's funny that you've got so much conflict between groups, and obviously there's a logical conclusion to that. And you see the left wing right now saying things like, "Oh, great, we're like these people are just the dumbest people on earth because they're not looking to the future." And like I say, the ship has sailed. There's no turning this around. Where they did things like with the graduation, like, we're going to have separate graduations for POCs versus POLs, people of the light, right? And so you look at that, and you think to ask these people, like, okay, so how do you think these European American kids feel when that you're alienating them, singling them out to say that you don't want to be with them? It's like, what do you think? It's going to take time for them, and it's taken a few years for them to kind of get their own in-group preferences. But what do you think happens logically to them? Like, they see this other group of people who've got tribal. It's one group, POCs versus the POLs. It's like, so what happens to these white kids, these white people in America? Like, what do you think? What do you think they're gonna? Oh, you mean they're gonna form identity politics also? Yeah, of course. I mean, where did you think this was gonna go? You have to be fucking retarded not to see this. You think they're just gonna stand back and let this continue and realize, oh, we have to get tribal also? Even people reluctantly get to that conclusion, like myself. Like, there's a lot of people like me. I represent millions of people. You do too. Who were the nicest people on earth and realize, like, oh, there really is no solution to this. You have a bunch of people who are easily manipulated by people who want to wreck society. So there's I think it was like Washington or Oregon. I mean, they did this in the Chaz. You saw they had their own segregated gardens, and then they kept sub-segregating it for it was POCs in general, right? So that means everyone at the Chaz except for the European kids could eat at that garden. It's a POC section. And you know, look at these people like, are you really this dumb? Like, you really don't think a few steps ahead? I'm not talking about chess. I'm talking about checkers. And then they the BIPOC further subdivided this garden, which is the size of a fucking postage stamp, and said, oh, this is for the BIPOC people. So there's I guess that means like Latin and Asians are one POC group, but then the other subsidiary. So you're talking about like what, 12 people? Are you like? You got to be the dumbest group of people on earth to not see a few steps into the freaking future. And then they did something like Portland and Oregon, or something somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. We're doing something like the restaurants were segregating because the POCs wanted to be away from the POL, people of the light. So, I mean, logically, like, can we think a step ahead and like, oh, okay, so let's turn around. So you have these, even like Seattle and Portland are very left-wing white people, or people of European descent, but eventually it's gonna click in their minds, like, oh, you're gonna get someone to go, oh, you know what, we as European people, we should get tribal also. We should have our own dining areas. You turn it around with PSCs are going, oh wait, we want to be away from you guys, but eventually you're gonna get other people waking up and going, oh yeah, but we also want to be away from you. And I don't say that with any joy, like, ah ha ha, the racists are gonna win this fight. It didn't have to go down this path. But you got very bad people who are manipulating very dumb people, and it's the path that goes down, where you're going to have even San Francisco liberals are looking around at what's happening. The endless crime. Their Teslas getting broken into, their houses getting broken into, and there's stores being looted. It's like, oh, the store shut down. Oh, yeah. So now we have... I mean, you see where this is going. It's like nobody is saying anything about it. Well, I'm saying something. Yeah, there's this video, 75 people will watch this video, but there's... like, nobody else is saying anything about this, a path that we didn't have to go down. Like, even I'm in some regards, very, very far right. But, most people, even on the far right, want to go, like, why can't we try to make peace? Is there some satisfaction and accord we could have without going down to this inevitable conclusion, which is going to result in massive loss of life? Is there any way we can cut that off to a peaceful solution, even if it includes, obviously, extrapolating the segregation to say, oh, we should separate? Like, if we legitimately have stuff like this, and this is just a raindrop that adds up to a torrent destroying a mountain. If this can happen in society, then yeah, and it would be better to separate. Like, oh, how dare you say that? The left wing has been saying this for years, and then suddenly you have people on the right who go, oh yeah, you guys are right. This mixed society was a mistake. It's just kind of game theory. Diversity actually causes weakness. It's weird that so many people have been repeating this platitude for so long, that diversity is strength. You're like, psychological studies, anthropological studies know that's not the case, because when there's conflict, you're going to get tribal. If you have groups under stress who have interests adverse to each other, they're going to instantly get tribal, and you see that now. And if you're on social media, you know what that is like. You see different subsections of Twitter, basically POC Twitter, that advocates for their group, even to the point of being illogical, even for the, like, short-term gains that will hurt them in the long term. Because it's not. It's like they don't really know what they're up against. It's like the Japan waking the sleeping dragon sort of thing. And it's, I don't mean that that's coming off like a threat. I don't mean it like that. I mean, you're going to get people separating, but will at the end of the separation, is your society better or worse to be without European people as a kind of a stabilizing influence? Like, I know where I'd want to live if California split up into different. Oh, you know, the northern part of California is going to be for the European people, and the southern part's going to be for. You get where I'm going with that. This is probably too much. This is definitely too much for YouTube. Shit. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, support me on subscribe star if you can. Why am I slurring my words? And I will see you guys on the next episode.